It all started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon at one of the busiest airports in the country. People hurried past, dragging luggage and checking departure boards, while inside the sleek, glass-walled VIP lounge, calm music played, and servers in crisp uniforms offered champagne and snacks. Among the well-dressed travelers and business elites sat a quiet, simple woman. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or carrying a luxury bag. In fact, she looked out of place. Alone, with tired eyes and a small, worn suitcase by her side. She had a pass to be there, but that didn't stop the judgmental stares. A few minutes later, a lounge staff member approached her. Politely at first, but firm. They told her the area was reserved for certain guests, that her presence made others uncomfortable. Confused and embarrassed, she explained she had every right to be there. But it didn't matter. People whispered. Some sneered. Eventually, they asked her to leave. No one stood up for her. No one questioned it. Not until he arrived. Just as she picked up her bag, about to walk away, a man in a tailored suit walked in. Tall, calm, with an unmistakable presence. He didn't look angry, but there was something in his eyes, something sharp and focused. It was the billionaire CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in the world. A man known for building his empire, from nothing, who rarely appeared in public without cameras following him. But today, he wasn't interested in making headlines. He was watching what just happened. As the staff continued to escort her out, he stepped forward and said just 5 words that froze the room. She's not going anywhere. The entire lounge went silent. The staff exchanged nervous glances. The woman looked shocked. Who was this man to step in? Why did he care? And what happened between them that made him break every rule of the elite social circle? What no one knew, what was about to unfold, would challenge everything the other guests thought they knew about class, respect, and quiet strength. Because the woman they had just judged had a story. And the CEO? He hadn't just noticed her. By accident. Stay with me, because what happened next will make you question how we treat strangers, and who's really worth paying attention to. For a moment, no one moved. The staff member who had been asking the woman to leave blinked in disbelief, then tried to recover. Sir, we were just following policy, he said quickly, trying to explain. But the CEO didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on the woman, soft, but firm. She's my guest, he said, calmly, but with enough weight to silence everyone around. The woman looked around, clearly confused. She didn't know who he was, or why he was standing up for her. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The humiliation still sat heavy on her shoulders. A few guests nearby began whispering again, only this time, their tones had changed, from mockery to curiosity. Some were now pulling out their phones, realizing something unusual was happening. As the tension thickened, the CEO pulled out his own VIP card, placed it on the counter, and motioned to a seat next to him. Please, he said gently. Sit with me. Slowly, the woman sat back down, still unsure whether this was a mistake or some strange joke. But the staff didn't say another word. They backed off, clearly not wanting to challenge a man whose name was known in every major business magazine. So, who was she? Her name was Clara. She had grown up in a small town, raised by her grandmother after her parents passed away. She never had much, but she worked hard. She wasn't famous, rich, or connected. She wasn't part of any elite circle. Just an ordinary woman traveling to visit her sister, who had recently undergone surgery in another city. Her flight was delayed, and she had been gifted a VIP lounge pass from a kind airline employee who noticed how tired she looked. She had never been in a place like this before. And the CEO? His name was Daniel Raines, a self-made billionaire. Yes, but more than that, a man with a past no one really talked about. Rumors said he didn't forget where he came from. that he had once been on the edge of homelessness before an old mentor gave him a chance. And now, it seemed, he had noticed something in Clara that reminded him of a time long before the suits, the interviews, the spotlight. But what did he see in her? Why was he so quick to defend a stranger? And most of all, what would happen next, now that the entire lounge had their eyes on them both? Clara sat stiffly, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The hum of the lounge had returned, but something felt different now, like the air had shifted. People still stole glances at her and Daniel, trying to piece together what they had just witnessed. Whispers floated across the room. Some guests were annoyed, others intrigued. One woman in a red blazer leaned in close to a man beside her, muttering, "He's probably doing this for publicity." But Daniel didn't seem to care. He sat beside Clara, calm and focused, as if none of the judgment around them mattered. A server hesitated before approaching with drinks, unsure whether to treat Clara like she belonged or not. Daniel made the decision for him, nodding politely and asking for coffee for them both. "You look like you've had a long day," he said to Clara, voice low and genuine. Clara nodded, not sure how much to say. She still didn't understand what was happening. Why a billionaire CEO, one who could have sat anywhere with anyone, had chosen her. She glanced at him, wondering if there was something he wanted, but his expression didn't suggest pity or some hidden agenda. It was more like recognition. Across the room, another subplot was unfolding. The lounge manager, visibly shaken, was now on the phone in the back corner, likely speaking with someone higher up. He kept glancing nervously at Daniel, clearly aware that one wrong step with a man of his status could mean consequences far beyond this lounge. But there was still something unsaid, something hanging heavy between Daniel and Clara. Why her? Why now? And as a few reporters began tweeting about the mystery woman seen with the reclusive billionaire, the pressure began to grow. For Clara, this wasn't just about being allowed to stay. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The quiet hum of the lounge grew sharper, almost charged, as eyes continued to follow every small movement between Clara and Daniel. She tried to shrink into her seat, wishing she could disappear, but it was too late. Someone had already snapped a photo. Within minutes, her face was floating online next to headlines like, "Unknown woman sits beside billionaire CEO in airport. VIP lounge and mom, who is she?" Daniel leaned in slightly, speaking in a low voice. "I know this is uncomfortable, but I've seen this kind of thing happen too many times." His words were calm, but his tone carried weight. Clara looked at him, still unsure why she was the one sitting there. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice quiet. He paused. "Because someone once did it for me," he said, "and because people shouldn't be judged by what they wear or how much they have in their wallet." The moment was simple, but the tension it created was massive. This wasn't just about a misunderstanding in a fancy lounge anymore. This was about power, image, and the unspoken rules that determined who was accepted and who was not. Meanwhile, the lounge manager had returned, flanked by a sharply dressed woman with a tablet in hand. She was from corporate. Her expression was tight, polite, but her eyes scanned Clara like she was the source of a problem. "Mr. Rains, can we speak with you privately?" she asked. Daniel stood but didn't move away from Clara. "If it concerns her, it concerns me," he replied without blinking. That reply sent a wave through the room. Even Clara felt it. This wasn't just kindness. There was something deeper. At play now, something personal. Whatever was about to happen next would not stay inside this lounge. The woman from corporate didn't back down. She glanced at Clara, then back at Daniel, her voice perfectly measured. "We've received a few complaints. Some of our premium members feel uncomfortable." She didn't say it outright, but everyone knew what she meant. Clara didn't fit the image. And now, with media attention swirling, their brand was at risk. Daniel's jaw tightened. Uncomfortable with what? He asked, his tone calm but clearly pushed. That someone who looks like her is sitting in the same room? Clara's heart pounded. She wanted to vanish, to escape the weight of every eye watching this unfold. But before she could even speak, the woman from corporate continued, this time choosing her words more carefully. It's not personal. It's about policy. We can't have disruptions in our premium spaces. You understand, don't you? Daniel took a slow breath. I do, he said. But if your policy is to humiliate paying guests based on appearances, then maybe you need to rewrite your policy. Then came the twist. From the back of the lounge, a man stood up. Middle-aged, graying at the temples, with a presence that made even the corporate rep stiffen. He was the chairman of the airport's board. That won't be necessary, he said, stepping forward. In fact, I'd like to speak with the young lady. Alone. The room held its breath. Clara looked to Daniel, who gave her a nod of quiet encouragement. She stood, nerves rattling, and followed the man to a quieter corner of the lounge. What he said next changed everything. I knew your mother, he began. Years ago. She helped me when I had nothing. I've never forgotten that. And now, I think you deserve to know something. Something that's going to change the way you see your past and your future. Clara's breath caught. Suddenly, this wasn't just about judgment or class. It was about legacy, about a hidden connection that had been buried for decades. And as the pieces began to shift, one thing was clear. Clara wasn't just a random stranger anymore. She was part of something much bigger, and the world was about to find out. Clara stared at the man, confused and overwhelmed. You knew my mother? She asked softly. He nodded. She was the kindest person I ever met. I was living out of my car when I met her. She gave me food, helped me find work. She never asked for anything in return. And now, years later, I see you sitting here, being treated the same way I was back then. Like you don't belong. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Before she passed, she left this with someone close to me. She told me to give it to her daughter, if I ever found her. Clara took the envelope with trembling hands, heart racing. Inside was a letter in her mother's handwriting, words full of love, and something more, details about her real father. Clara froze. According to the letter, her biological father had never known about her. He was young, working abroad when her mother discovered she was pregnant. They lost touch. But her mother had always hoped Clara would one day find the truth. Clara looked up at the man. Do you know who he was? She asked. The man gave a small smile. I do, and I believe... You've already met him. She blinked, her mind racing. And then it hit her. The quiet protectiveness. The way Daniel had looked at her. Not with pity, but with familiarity. With something deeper. Clara turned toward Daniel, who was still seated across the room, watching her closely. The truth unraveled all at once. Daniel wasn't just standing up for a stranger. He had known something, or at least felt something, from the start. She walked back slowly, letter still in hand. When their eyes met, he stood. I think we need to talk, Clara said, voice shaking. Daniel's expression softened. Yes, I think we do. The lounge, once buzzing with tension, now felt utterly silent. But just as the answers seemed clear, a voice called from the entrance, another journalist waving a photo. Clara, is it true you're the heir to the Rains estate? Suddenly, Clara's world tilted again. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The camera flashes came quickly, followed by a swirl of questions Clara wasn't ready to answer. Daniel stepped between her and the reporter, calmly raising a hand. No comments right now, he said firmly, guiding Clara away from the attention. They found a quiet corner near the back of the lounge, away from the noise. Clara held the letter close, still trying to process everything. She looked at Daniel, searching his face for the truth. "Did you know?" she asked quietly. Daniel shook his head. "Not for sure. I only knew your mother briefly, years ago. She helped me at a time when no one else would. I never knew she had a daughter." He paused, then added, "But when I saw you, I felt something. Like I'd known you somehow. Maybe it's fate. Or maybe it's just life coming full circle." The tension between them eased. Not because all the answers were suddenly clear, but because the weight of misunderstanding had lifted. Clara wasn't just a woman who didn't belong in a VIP lounge. She was someone who had every right to be there, and more. The people who had judged her now sat quietly, unsure of what to say. The narrative had shifted. She wasn't invisible anymore. The lounge manager, now humbled, approached with an apology. Clara simply nodded. She didn't need validation from them anymore. Her story, her truth, was stronger than their assumptions. Before boarding her flight, Clara stood by the window for a moment, looking out at the plains. Her journey was far from over. She had a sister to visit, a new family history to explore, and a future that no longer felt like a closed door. Daniel handed her a card. "When you're ready to talk more, I'll be here." Clara smiled, slipping the card into her bag. "Thank you for seeing me." And with that, she walked toward her gate. No longer the woman who didn't belong, but someone stepping boldly into her own story. Because sometimes the most unexpected moments reveal the truth about who we really are. And when kindness meets courage, everything can change.